Hello and welcome back to another episode of Rapping with the Rep. I'm State Representative Ken Gordon and I'm looking forward to another great show for you today. Today we're going to be discussing the Middlesex 3 Coalition. With me today is the Executive Director of the Middlesex 3 Coalition, Stephanie Cronin, and two of the directors of Middlesex 3. We have Rick Reed, who is the town manager from Bedford and the president of Middlesex 3, and John Petrin, director of Middlesex 3 and the town administrator from Burlington. Middlesex 3 is a coalition of businesses and government leaders from 5 communities going along Route 3, from Route 128 up to Route 495, and perhaps someday expanding even further north. But right now it involves the communities of Bedford, Burlington, Billerica, Chelmsford, and Lowell, somewhat in alphabetical order with a little bump to the towns in my district. It's a group that has been focusing on several issues that will assist businesses stay in this area and become attracted to this area. One of the issues that it's focused in on that I've been delighted to become involved with is the issue of transportation. Businesses that are here tell us that one of the frustrations they have is in bringing their employees who don't live here to this area through the traffic or through public transportation, and we're looking at ways to address that. We're also looking at ways to improve the quality of workforce training in this area. We have the benefit of having one of the lower unemployment rates in the Commonwealth right here in the Burlington and Bedford area, but we can always do better. There are people who have been laid off, especially in the high-tech industry, and with some training, they can get right back to work because we've seen time and again the high-tech business coming back. So I want to talk about those issues. Let's start with transportation. Now Middlesex 3 has received a $148,000, am I right, grant from the state government to get to work on creating TMAs, Transportation Management Associations, to bring employees who live in the Boston area out here, employees who don't necessarily have a car, want to have a car, or to address some of the traffic needs. So one of you can jump in, we'll have a nice roundtable discussion about these issues. Let's talk about what we're doing on Middlesex 3 to address those needs.
Well, the grant you referred to, Ken, is actually a grant that's provided through the state under the Community Innovation Challenge grant program. It's for communities to work together to create innovation in municipal services. So we took this program as an opportunity to focus on a priority for the Middlesex 3 Coalition, being transportation. So we're going to be looking at trying to explore the formation of a Transportation Management Association for the region, which will help to coordinate shuttle bus services to the businesses in the region.
And that's begun already, right,
Yes.
Steph? You know, in Billerica.
It has. And just to kind of elaborate on what Rick was saying, is that this CIC grant, it does a couple of things. And one is that we do have a lot of resources, transportation resources in this area, which, you know, we have the MBTA, both the commuter rail and the bus. We have the LRTA. We have, let's see, the Lexington Express, the Burlington bus, the Bedford bus. There's a Middlesex Community College has a bus. The UMass Lowell has a bus. The City of Lowell has trolley service. And there's a lot of private shuttles as well. So there are transportation resources here. But what we're trying to do is take a step back. And everyone's doing a great job. And they're great organizations to work with. But everyone has their own agenda. And we're trying to take a step back and to look at, okay, where are there redundancies? Where are there overlaps? And we know that we have some buses that stop in front of businesses that have been closed for 10 years or more. And we know that these groups want to work together. So what we're looking at is coordinating the resources to see whether we can use what we currently have more efficiently and effectively. So that's one part of the grant. Then the other is what you're talking about with the shuttle service. And part of this, it goes back to the mission of the coalition. And we're not trying to take a place of a chamber and of a networking group, because those groups in this area, they do a great job. What we're doing is we're looking at working with issues that for one municipality it's hard to deal with on their own, such as transportation. And so with E-Inc, they recently moved up from Cambridge up to Billerica. And transportation was a big issue for them. And so they've started this shuttle service from Boston and Cambridge up to Billerica. But they asked us, they said, look, we can do it for a limited amount of time, but we need help in bringing other businesses on board in order to sustain it. because people love their cars, and it's hard to keep people in the shuttle going on public transportation indefinitely. So what we're doing is we've been working with other businesses along the Route 3 corridor, and we have businesses in Bedford. We just recently met with about half a dozen businesses in Bedford that are looking to join the shuttle. There are a few other ones on the Middlesex Turnpike that are looking to join the shuttle. There's so much going on in Burlington. We've got a number of other companies there that are looking to join this shuttle service, as well as Crosspoint over in Lowell too. So we're probably, it's going to be hopefully a number of shuttle services, because there's that magic number of 45 minutes. People don't like to be on public transportation longer than a 45-minute time period. But it's not just a shuttle service too. There's other components of it, such as the emergency ride home service. So if people take a shuttle from Boston and Cambridge up this way, they need to know that if something happens, whether it's child care, emergencies, or whatever, they can get back home, whether it's a cab, or you rented a car or something, that they can get back home as well too. So there's that piece of the puzzle as well too. So it's not just the shuttle service. That's one part of it, and so we've been working with other communities and other companies to bring them on board with this shuttle service, and hopefully then to grow it into the TMA.
Yeah, just to break that down a little bit, there are transportation needs that we're looking at that will take time to address, with reconstruction issues that will take time. But what we're also looking at, and what Middlesex 3 is looking at, is for a more immediate fix, taking some cars off the road. We have people who are living in Boston and Cambridge and Somerville working for a company like E-Inc. that's moved to our area, to Billerica in this case, and these are employees that don't have cars, that don't really want to have cars because it's hard to park if you're living in Cambridge or Boston or Somerville. And so these are ways to get people here without putting more cars on the road, putting one van rather than a series of cars, which also helps people who aren't working at these places but are stuck in traffic.
Right.
There's also a need to get the workforce from the Lowell area to the Burlington area.
Right.
And we do have service. The Lowell Regional Transit Authority brings buses down into Burlington every day, but we want to take a look at that and see if that schedule is meeting our needs and could be improved in any way.
There's so many moving parts here.
Exactly.
So transportation is this word that covers a lot of areas of what we do. And one of the problems we have is, and I think Mark Drayson used the word with me, the MAPC director, as to we're a tweener community. So we're sitting here at the edge of the MBTA service. Billerica's at the edge of the LRTA service, and we're having trouble trying to blend these different districts into one, and then just taking care of the car problem, the traffic issues. We're very successful in this area. We're fortunate to be in this area, and this whole district has had a lot of success in the last several years with attracting new businesses. Well, with that brings some of the cons. So the pros is great businesses are coming to town. The cons are we have to be able to address the transportation needs. So that's what we're trying to take a look at, is the big picture.
And two other pieces as well with that is the last mile piece as well too, and that people will they'll take the commuter rail up to whether it's Lowell or North Billerica or wherever it might be, but from there it's hard for them to get to the industrial parks or wherever they might work. So we're looking at trying to fill that little piece as well. Well, I say little, but it's not. It's that piece as well too. And then we've also been approached by a number of residential developers who say if you have buses that are coming from Boston and Cambridge up to this way, well then obviously they have to come back. And so wouldn't it make sense if they were to go back with residents that are then working in Boston as well too? So it's a common sense approach, and we're trying to do what works best and what makes the most sense for the communities.
Right, and this is where Middlesex 3 is in a unique position to be able to do that, because communities acting alone don't have as much clout in this area. Traffic crosses a town border. When the traffic backs up in Burlington, it can come in and does come into Bedford. And so working together to address these needs is, I think, the way to go, and why, as a state rep, I've been excited to be able to get together with that group.
I mean, John mentioned earlier we're a tweener community, and that really is at the core of why the communities came together to form the Middlesex 3 Coalition, because we are so often between the Lowell Central-based focus to the north and the Boston-based focus to the east and south. And so our communities, as a way of trying to help ourselves be more effective in addressing these issues, decided that forming our own regional organization, which included the business community, would be a better and more effective way of working together to sort of, almost if you will, counteract the draw that occurs of looking at the two major cities and focused on what goes on there. We need to think more across this regional boundary that is almost arbitrarily set up in a way between the Boston area and Lowell to the north. So.
Right.
And it's been very successful to date. I mean, we just concluded our second year of existence, as Middlesex 3, and so we're beginning our third year now. And the people who have come together, our annual meeting was a success. We've been holding several meetings to address these issues, getting 150, 200 people. These are the decision makers for a lot of these from this area coming in, and we're getting the state officials to come out and talk to us. So we just had a success with the Transportation Secretary, Davey, coming out, and basically we had put on the table the issue of having conversation with Department of Transportation, the fact that we needed a liaison, and he agreed in that meeting to assign a liaison to our area so that we can start having these big picture discussions with transportation on a regular basis.
And what he said when he was asked, what can we do to take the next step? And his answer was, you've done it. Creating Middlesex 3, creating a coalition of cooperation and coming to the state in that way with this agenda is such an important step.
Yeah, it just makes sense too, and I think that's why we have been successful over the last 2 years too. We have about 50 members who've joined the Middlesex 3 Coalition because we all know that you can only do so much with the limited resources. So to work together to achieve the same goal just makes sense too. But one other point, if I could jump in too, as far as our missions as well too, which transportation and workforce development, those two main missions. But another target area is also just promoting this region. And we had a kickoff event about 2 years ago where we had a gentleman who worked at Silicon Valley. And he said one thing that California does better than Massachusetts is California will promote themselves. They'll pat themselves on the back. And so when Company A in California might have a win, like a public offering or something, Company B will cheer it as a win for the area. And that's something that we don't do as well here because we've got such great companies, such great resources, and we don't necessarily tout them as much as we can and we should. And so that's part of why we've had a number of events. We've had a life sciences event about a year or so ago, where we have 80 life science companies in this area, and I think a lot of people, that was surprising to me to find out that we had such a strong cluster of life science companies. We had a robotics event recently where we're an epicenter for robotics in the United States because in chief part because of iRobot and then all the spin-offs that has happened from that. And then at UMass Lowell there's the Nerve Center, which is one of 3 public testing facilities for robots in the United States. So there's like a strong cluster of robotics companies in this area as well too. And then we've had a number of other events at Economic Development Forum with Secretary Greg Bielecki, who came out and talked about what's happening in Massachusetts, but also what's happening in this area. So there's a lot that's happening, and I think part of what we need to do better is to make certain people are aware of all the good things that are happening as well.
We know that successful businesses want to be grouped together and considered together, and we see that over and over. Like you said, Silicon Valley is a great example. When a high-tech business considers moving into Silicon Valley, they take comfort in knowing that they will be considered among that group of businesses, so that when they're recruiting an employee and they give their address, many people will consider the name of that valley to be the geography that they identify. They're not really considering the name of the town or the city within that valley. The same with the technology triangle in North Carolina. There's a comfort in being there if you're in that industry. And so the mission of Middlesex 3 is to create that with the name Middlesex 3.
Well, and the business participation component of Middlesex 3 is very key with respect to what we were just talking about, because in other parts of the country, like Silicon Valley, there are business-oriented organizations that of major employers that have formed and give input regionally. So one key aspect of Middlesex 3 is to allow regional business cooperation and interaction of the major employers and give them an ability to come together, speak potentially with one voice to our state government and our communities about what their needs are.
The key to any success is communication. I think we all know that, and this has given us that forum to communicate, our needs, and our strengths, from this area to the various parties that we need to. So I think we've been successful in doing that. So successful we're having other communities, talking to us now about, is there opportunity, for them to join in this discussion? Because again, every time, you take an area, there are fringes to that area. So that's our discussion right now, is how big do we grow that area? We want to keep concentrating on the Route 3 aspect of Middlesex 3.
Right.
And
Go
it-
ahead, Stephanie.
I'm sorry. Well, and I think part of the success too is the makeup of the board, and it's actually one of those meetings that you enjoy going to because there's this friendly competition among the different communities as well too, and we use Keurig as the example where all the communities wanted Keurig to come to their community. Well, they ended up in Burlington. But we also know that even though they're in Burlington, it's going to benefit. They're going to be workers from Bedford, from Billerica, Lowell, and Chelmsford as well too. So there's a friendly competition, but we come to the table with the same goals as well too.
That's right. Not to mention the real estate. They come to Burlington, people buy houses.
Absolutely.
In Burlington, in Bedford, in Billerica. And so it helps the real estate values as well. It's all this symbiotic relationship where we help each other.
And the spin-off effects for small businesses that support the larger businesses in different ways.
Yeah, a number of times I've gone to the ribbon cutting of a smaller business and I ask them, why did you choose this area, this district? And they say, because of the people. There are more people here now because of these, essentially the high-tech business coming in, the larger employers are coming in, there are people here and they need the services of the restaurants and other of
Dry
these
cleaners or
businesses
whatever,
and
yeah.
dry cleaners and businesses like that. So everyone wins, really.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about workforce training. One of the issues that I've seen in my term in office has been people who, especially in the high-tech industry, they've learned a skill. That skill isn't as useful as technology changes. They become laid off and they're in the one-stop career centers in the area. There are also employers coming in who have job openings. They don't quite match. There's a gap. And working with the community colleges and the technical schools, Middlesex 3 is able to help address that gap. Can you talk a little bit about the workforce training aspect?
So we have a workforce development committee, which is chaired by Judy Burke of Middlesex Community College, and they've been absolutely wonderful. And it's also on the committee is UMass Lowell, as well as the couple of career centers, and I believe we have three technical schools that service this area as well too. And so we mentioned earlier cluster, a couple of targets that we're trying to hit with the Workforce Development Committee. One is the clusters that we talked about before, and creating workforce training grants for various cluster type industries as well too. And also just promoting the workforce training fund that's available and working with the companies to apply for the workforce training fund. So that's one area that we've been working with. Also, Northeastern, they've also recently opened up a new facility in town as well too, and bringing them into the fold is also extremely important too. But also creating those connections with the educational institutions and the businesses too. And we've got quite a number of educational institutions that want to connect with the businesses, but to do it under one umbrella is just more efficient for everybody involved too. I use iRobot and EMD Serono are two great examples where iRobot wants to get out to the educational institutions, and not just the higher ed, but even down to the primary school, and to let them know what's going on at iRobot. And it doesn't have to be in just the town of Bedford. It's really throughout the Route 3 corridor. And so that's such a nice win for that company and many others that for the the schools to be able to say, hey, Mom, look what I learned in school today. iRobot came and they're doing X, Y, and Z. But EMD Serona, they've got similar issues, not issues, but the desires to work with the educational institutions. And they recently donated thousands of dollars of outdated lab equipment to the Billerica High School. And so those types of partnerships, it's such a big win for the high school, but it was a nice thing for the company to do as well, too. So we're trying to foster those types of relationships.
I've actually been surprised in some respects about learning by being in Middlesex 3 about the amazing array of resources that are available through our educational institutions and the state Department of, what's it called, Workforce Training and Development, I think. And you know, a lot of these things I wasn't aware before as just a regular local government manager. I wouldn't have known to mention it to any business community or think to you know, discuss this subject with them that much. Coming together as a group as Middlesex 3 and being exposed to what our partners at UMass Lowell and Middlesex Community College have, as well as the vocational technical high schools, it's eye-opening what amount of resources we have that can really be brought to the table for the improvement of things in the businesses. And you know, they have training needs. I think making those connections are really a very valuable aspect of Middlesex 3.
The day Charlie Lyons took me through Shawsheen Tech,
Oh, yeah.
I remember I came home that night. I told my wife, "You can't believe what I saw today."
Yeah.
Programs from hairdressing to cooking to what you would expect from a tech school, the shop areas, computer design.
But the technical design now of what they do
Technical design.
And the 3D printers
yeah.
as well.
Yeah, and what they can do for adult training as well.
Yes.
They've got this equipment and they want to use it in the evening. They want to use it for people who are laid off workers collecting unemployment to help them get back on their feet, as well as the more traditional age of their students.
But I think the key of this discussion is it is a public-private partnership.
Yes.
And I think sometimes, you know, we're kind of, you know, Rick's the president of Middlesex 3 and is the face, and it's almost like it's a community thing. No, it's not. It's not a municipal, you know, issue. It is a community issue in which we're together, and we've got the 5 municipalities, we got 2 colleges, the 2 hospitals, and then the rest of the membership, you know, 50 people, is private businesses, you know, seeking to address their needs, which many of them dovetail with our needs. But workforce development is one that, you know, we need to get, you know, involved with because it's good for our communities. But it's not something we need to worry about on a day-to-day basis, you know, for our operation.
Municipal operation.
For the municipal operation, because our workforce development is different, you know, from the private sector. But we need to understand the private sector's needs.
Right.
And that has been, as Rick was saying, I think that's eye-opening, you know, to us, and getting a better understanding of what we should be seeking out and lobbying for. And that's why we have 2 main committees, and one of them is workforce development, you know, at this point.
Right. You know, I've said that government isn't in business, but government does the things that make it possible for business to be in business. And with Middlesex 3, what's also true is government can be in partnership with businesses so we can help each other out. Things like addressing our transportation needs by providing some of the equipment that the government has that business can use, and then business contributes to some of the operating expenses through the shuttle services, through the TMA working together to create these opportunities that alone would be difficult to happen. So it's an exciting thing to do.
So one other area that we're hoping to get into, and we haven't gotten as far along yet as the last 2 areas we've talked about, is utilities and planning, making sure that the right infrastructure is in place here in this region for business growth, and on also coordination of when road work is being done, and utilities are an aspect of the road work, trying to do a better job of advancing and the utility work in a way that won't hold up the road work eventually.
Right, that's something that on the state level we can provide some assistance with, because a lot of residents look at construction and they see that the construction has stalled. Middlesex Turnpike that runs through the 3 communities that we're from here.
Under the
But it's-
banner of utilities, also today, a very important aspect of business activity is having the right communications infrastructure in place also for today's modern, fiber optic needs that essentially most all commerce now is being done on the internet, and for our businesses that rely on that, we need to make sure that that right infrastructure is in place here in this region.
Right, we need that technology here.
Yeah.
We need to provide that
Yeah.
access.
And I've got to give a little credit also to National Grid too, because they're coming to the table now and they're saying, look, the past is the past. We've reorganized. We want to be more proactive with economic development. We want to be working with municipalities and with Middlesex 3. So we have a number of events that we're lining up for the next year as well too, with utilities planning and to see whether we have the infrastructure that we need for the next 5 to 10 years as well too. So they're working with us on that front, and we're trying to bring all the utilities under one umbrella to speak with one voice. And a lot of times, as we were saying earlier, it goes back to the communication as well too. And I know in some communities when you have a development project going forward, you meet with all the department heads all at once to learn what they're looking to do. And if that's something that we can bring the utilities in with as well too, just so that everyone's on the same page at the beginning, so we know where we're going over the next 5, 6 months, whatever it might be. It's just going to make the process that much easier.
Again, ways in which the municipalities and business working together can get to a goal that working alone they can't do.
Well, that's the whole goal here, again, communications, and we certainly appreciate the role you've taken, as being one of our lead people we go to from the legislative side. You've been attending many of our meetings and
Absolutely.
been participant, on the transportation task force. So these are the type connections we're trying to build, and having our legislators at the table, and that's why having 5 communities with several, state reps, couple of state senators, if we can get that group together to understand all our needs. We were talking before the show of you bringing the speaker out here to Leahy Hospital and looking at one of the issues, to get it passed. And that's what we need, is to get people to understand where we're going,
Yeah.
with some of the pieces. And so we appreciate the role you've taken so far.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And as we said, the speaker was here about a month ago at Leahy, looked at an issue that was troubling Leahy, and Monday we put a fix in it in a bill that we passed through the House and is on its way to the Senate. And hopefully will get signed by the governor soon. So again, that comes through that cooperation, and this was a group that I was excited to get involved with right away, because it is a regional approach and it is something that I can be excited to be involved with. Stephanie, you were going to...
No, I think I was going to echo John's points as well too. That you've been with us from the very beginning. So we thank you for all of your help.
See, I turned over to you for a compliment. It's fishing. But go ahead.
But yeah, it is going very well, and we're excited. We're starting our 3rd year. We're looking forward to a number of great programs. We're looking at an advanced manufacturing event happening in the fall as well too, and as Rick was saying, working with the utilities and permitting, and just helping to grow the region and smartly.
That's great. And good.
1 minute.
Yeah, with 1 minute left.
I think
Rick.
one thing to say would be we certainly would be open and want to invite more participation in the Middlesex 3 Coalition. Any business leaders out there that happen to tune in and watch the program, we want them to know that we'd welcome their participation in the organization. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about Middlesex 3, you can certainly visit our website, middlesex3.org.
The number 3
Yeah,
.com.
Well, we should have
actually.
been showing, I'm
Okay.
sure we have been showing the Middlesex
get that
3
right.
website on the screen
Middlesex3.com.
since you've been watching.
Yeah.
And also to echo that too, with shuttle service too. That's something where we are trying to gain membership and companies that are interested in joining the shuttle. If they can give us a call, let us know. We'd love to go out, work with them. We provide surveys to employees to see where people come from and to see whether it makes sense to join the shuttle or other types of transportation options as well too, whether it's van pooling or ride sharing or whatnot.
Well, what a great discussion this has been. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Rapping with the Rep. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Rick.
Pleasure.
Thank you,
Thank you.
John. And until next time, this is State Representative Ken Gordon Well, thank you for watching. Good day.